it's been a learning experience for me to come to the USA because obviously I'm from Britain. You can probably tell from the accent, and to come to the USA and to have people talking quite openly for a while, particularly to come out while I was in the USA about sort of atheism being the new gay and coming out as atheists being kind of like coming out as gay. And for a while, that really rubbed me the wrong way. I was like,
Yeah.
you have no clue what you're talking about. It annoyed me. And, just being totally honest. But I have to say, from doing all these talks I do and visiting places in the country where um, the religious influence is much stronger than it is in Massachusetts and way stronger than it is anywhere in the United Kingdom. I've come to realize that that isn't an inapt analogy in some cases for some people. Like for
Yeah.
some people, in some cases, that is a reasonable analogy. And I totally admit I didn't see that for a while. I guess I think I wrote some comments on some people's blog posts about why are you using this analogy? It's totally wrong. And I've realized that actually in some cases, in some areas, I was wrong. Sitting and talking to, I've come to know people like Jessica Alquist reasonably well. She lives in
Mm.
Rhode Island. I went down while they were doing one of the decisions, and we've known each other for a while, and I know some of the things that she's experienced. Damon Fowler as well, people like that who have experienced real hardship and exclusion from communities that are valuable to them,
Hmm.
damage to relationships that they care about because of their sort of being open about their beliefs and then standing up for them. And I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
Like for Damon Fowler, the things that he experienced were very like what some gay kids experience when they come out of the closet. He was kicked out of his home. He has a bad relationship with his parents now, or at least last time I spoke with him. And that that's been a shock to me. So hey, that's something I've learned from the atheist movement over here that I was wrong about, and they were right about in many cases.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I too, because at first it was I felt weird about it. But that was a conscious raising thing for me to be able to understand my own experience, because when I was when I became an atheist, like it was only yeah. So at first I thought, how in the world can I compare myself to the gay experience and talk about coming out? That was ridiculous to me. But when I thought about it, and I thought about how much of a rupture to my whole identity it had been, and how I had had these conversations that went like this: "Have you told your brother yet?
Hmm.
Have you told your mother yet?" And I realized that that's that's the have you come out yet? That's what people are like, that anxiety that I've come out to these people but not these. And every one of and I was at a religious school. I was at one of the most ranked by U.S. News and World Report as among the top whatever many schools they ranked, 350 schools in the country, whatever. We were top 10 among the most religious in a number of categories. So every one of my friends was religious. Every one of my friends was a Christian. This was a matter of going to everyone you knew and saying, "I am this other thing now," and it was a whole rupture of identity. And so there was a coming out going through that. And one of the
Yeah.
funny things about this was that a couple of years later, I wound up in an argument, and at the and I lose my temper a few times a year, right? I don't talk about not like I lose it. It's getting less now, but used to be several major blowups a year. I'm reasonable. I'm reasonable most of the time. Then I'm going to have a blowup. But one of the blowups was over someone who went after the motives that I had in leaving. And when they pushed that button, when they pushed the button and accused me of leaving for anything but my commitment to what I believed was true and good, to accuse me of leaving for any other motive than that, like I just went into such a rage. And for years later, I was like, "That is my button. You cannot push, or I'm going to bite your head off." But I didn't actually do that many times. But like I had it in my head that that was where I was entitled as my stand on my dignity. Like, you can challenge my ideas, you can say I'm wrong, you can do all of this, but once you challenge the ethical sincerity by which I deconverted, I was going to lose it. And I can grasp that, and that's one of those entrance points, right, where then I can
Yeah.
say, okay, these people who are fighting for their right to call people assholes and douchebags, they're, like, where it's probably when we're getting near their button where they're like, my entire dignity hinges on
Yeah.
this, and that's where I'm not going to let you cross that line. And I can learn from that. But again, the irony of all this is, again, I didn't start this as trying to pick on members of other groups. I got into this because I was looking at the religious and saying, look, I believe that that when religious people say we're going to love the sin but hate the sinner with gay people, that they can't do that.
No,
Like
there.
if you,
Oh.
because what you're saying is, what you're saying is, I'm going to hate your whole psychosexual side of your identity, but love you. And it's too much to hate about someone.
Yeah.
It's impossible to love someone and not be happy at their wedding. It's impossible to love someone and not welcome their right to have children fully and adopt. And it's impossible to love someone and be making it harder for them to walk down the street holding hands with their lover. Like, you
Yeah.
cannot do that to people. And so there's a gap between denying someone's identity and being able to then love them. However, the problem then became, for me as an atheist, I recognized, well, if I'm going to say that when I attack people's religious ideas, I want them to detach from their beliefs. I don't want them to take it as an attack on identity.
Hmm.
But it is an identity for them.
Yes.
And to the extent that I am attacking their identity, it is hard for me to also love them. And I really started to work through that and say, if we're going to criticize religious people, we have to do it in as targeted ways on what is wrong with their ethics, what is wrong with their politics, what is wrong with their abstract beliefs about the world. But and we have to use satire. We have to have our own right to blaspheme. But we also have to find the line where we start othering and dehumanizing them, and that's where the crusade against the word stupid started. That's where like I became so focused on anywhere where we don't have to be confrontational and antagonistic. Let's try not to be, because
Yeah.
anywhere where it's at all gratuitous or superfluous, and it won't actually lead to moral, intellectual, or political change, then we're pushing too hard. We've got to learn a way to love religious people. Otherwise, we're going to be hating their identities, and I just don't think that's healthy.
No, I broadly agree.